In 2010, conservative commentator Glenn Beck and then Congressman Anthony Weiner got into what would become a multi-year public feud over business practices of a company called Goldline International. Now, to really understand how this feud started, we have to rewind a little bit to the 2008 financial crash. With the markets crashing and banks failing, people losing their homes and savings left and right, it created this wave of fear about the economy, and a lot of folks, predominantly conservatives, were desperate for ways to invest what they had left. Now, at the time, Beck was hosting his show on Fox News while also hosting his radio show, and amidst the '08 crisis, Goldline approached him with the sponsorship deal, which Beck took. He would then go on to talk about economic collapse, government overreach, and push gold as this ultimate safe haven. Now, one of his spiels, which you might remember, was about the 3 Gs: gold, God, and guns. And Goldline, an LA-based dealer in gold and silver coins that pushes retirees to invest their retirement funds, became the benefactor of his audience's trust. Now, Beck would say he had over 10% of his own money in gold and called Goldline his favorite dealer that you could trust. Other hosts like Sean Hannity were in on it too, but that's another video. Now, enter Anthony Weiner, a Democratic congressman from New York. In May 2010, his House subcommittee dropped a report on Goldline called As Seen on TV, an investigation of Goldline International. Weiner had received reports from upset constituents who felt ripped off, and this prompted him to start digging into Goldline. The report called out Goldline for aggressive sales tactics like promising customers cheap bullion and baiting switching them into these semi-numismatic coins, which today are also known as exclusive or premium coins with markups of up to 90% over spot. These coins were hard to resell because Goldline had exclusive agreements with the mint to distribute the coins in the primary market, and sales reps were accused of fear-mongering their customers, like warning about government seizures and economic collapse. And Weiner blasted this as an unholy alliance between Beck and Goldline, saying that Beck should be ashamed for promoting what he rightly called a scam targeting conservative seniors and patriots. Beck shot back the next day after the report came out and said that the report was liberal spin and accused Weiner of attacking free enterprise. And this turned into a huge back and forth media war. Beck calling Weiner a hack, Weiner pushing for FTC and SEC probes. And to amp it up, Weiner introduced House Resolution 6149 in September of 2010, called the Coin and Precious Metal Disclosure Act. Now, if it had passed, the act would have required gold dealers like Goldline to fully disclose all fees, all markups and commissions, and all of the risks up front. So no more hidden costs or misleading ads. The act aimed to protect investors from deceptive marketing, from the lowball buybacks that these customers were giving folks, the manipulated spreads, and the bait and switch tactics. Basically, this could have been a good step toward cleaning up the industry. Though I don't think it actually would have fully solved the issue, but it would have been a good start. Now, unfortunately, the bill didn't get far and it never became law. It died in that Congress. The public feud dragged on, but it came to an abrupt end when Weiner had his infamous fall from grace, if he had any grace at all anyway, in June 2011. He got wrapped up in a sexting scandal that forced him to resign from Congress, and then he was subsequently convicted to serve prison time for that conviction. And that pretty much ended the push, at least from a congressional standpoint, against Goldline. Now, around this same time, Beck announced in April of 2011 that he was leaving Fox with his last show to be in June 2011. He blamed leaving Fox on advertiser boycotts over his controversial takes, though it actually wasn't linked at all to Goldline, who he continued to promote on his own platform on Blaze Network for a while until Goldline started facing some real legal trouble. In 2011, Santa Monica prosecutors filed a 19-count criminal complaint against the company and 6 executives, charging them with grand theft, fraud, and elder abuse. The suit was all about the bait and switches, the hidden markups, the deceptive practices that they were doing as a whole. Then in 2012, they settled that lawsuit for $4.5 million, which was mostly to be refunded to customers. Then there was another $1 million award in restitution that was due in 2015. Now, during this period, Beck quietly distanced himself from Goldline. There was no more big plugs for them or defending them like he had done before with the feud between Weiner and him. And the lawsuits just kept piling up. And with that, you'd figure that this would be the end of Beck's gold adventures. But fast forward to February 2024, Beck announced a new sponsorship deal with Lear Capital, another LA-based precious metals dealer and a direct competitor of Goldline that was founded in 1997 by a guy named Kevin Demerit. Now, Beck's quoted last year when this deal took place that 20 years ago, he purchased his very first gold from Lear, and it's quadrupled in value. And he credits Rush Limbaugh for the intro and calls Lear the company you can trust. And now he's in their ads and he's pushing them on radio and TV and on his podcast, and they're pushing IRAs. But hold up. How can it be that he bought his first gold from them 20 years ago? Because 20 years ago, he was knee deep into endorsing Goldline, who were apparently the trusted company for gold. Now, I looked and I can't find any record anywhere of Beck mentioning Lear until this deal happened last year. It seems like they're just fudging the timeline to fluff it up, make it sound like he's had this long relationship with them to make it sound more solid and to persuade viewers that, oh, Beck's trusted them for 20 years and all we can trust them because Glenn Beck trusts them. And Beck's standing on his story claiming it's authentic, which clearly it's not if you take 5 minutes to look into it. Well, I mean, I guess it is authentic because it's authenticated in the payment that he's receiving from Lear. So in that case, I mean, I guess it is authentic. Now, what's absolutely incredulous about this deal is that Lear have its own pile of problems, including their own lawsuits. In 2019, the city of Los Angeles attorney, Mike Fuhrer, sued them for deceptive practices. The same hidden fees eating into savings that Goldline customers had experienced. And on top of that, Lear were actually threatening customers who had complained. To make matters worse, 2 private citizens in 2019 filed lawsuits against Lear for fraud, intentional misrepresentation, unjust enrichment, and a host of other issues. Then in 2021, New York AG Letitia James, which I know we don't like her at all, I get that and I'm with you, but she filed a suit along with a host of other states, including Washington, Illinois, Georgia, I believe. There's a ton of states that tacked onto this for not disclosing the 33 commissions that they were paying to their salesmen and probably people like Glenn Beck. They also sued him for unregistered operations and misleading sales that they claim hit over 1,000 investors. Now, I think that's really, really small. I don't think that's the case. It was way more than 1,000, but I digress. Many of the investors in their report were elderly, which is par for the course in my experience as an ex-executive of one of these companies. They target 50-plus conservatives. Now, this lawsuit was settled in January 2022 for $6 million from New York for refunds plus reforms like fee disclosures and 24-hour cancellation periods after placing a trade. The city of LA settles their lawsuit later for $2.75 million, mostly covering customer payouts with more nationwide changes in their practices. So over 20 states had piled on to this lawsuit against Lear, which forced them to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in March of 2022. Then in June of 2023, they emerged from the bankruptcy with a $5.5 million fund for harmed investors spanning from 2016 to 2022. Now remember, Lear were in business from 1997. So Lear have been doing this since 1997. This period, this $5.5 million only spans that 6-year period from 2016 to 2022. So you have another 18 years, 19 years of them doing this to folks, and now another 3 because they've been operating still through all of this of them doing the same thing. Now, the lawsuit claims that they're under watch by the authorities, but get this, part of the lawsuit also said that they didn't have to admit any guilt. Now, isn't that something? Clearly, you're guilty because you're paying restitution. Clearly, you did a lot of things that you ought not be doing, and clearly there was a massive case against you, and you don't have to admit any guilt. I personally don't think that the prosecutors went hard enough. Now, you'd think with that, the issues with Lear would stop, but they haven't, because their entire business model is to defraud their customers. That's all these companies know. As of this recording on October 8th, 2025, more BBB complaints keep coming, and these are just the ones that we know about. These are just the people who decided to complain. 31 complaints in the last 3 years, 12 in the last 12 months. And these are complaints like a July 2025 gripe where someone's account dropped from $107,000 invested to $64,000 of investment on sales that they said they didn't authorize. Now, this is normal because, you know, that $64,000 is the amount that their custodian value their assets at within their IRA, which is basically at spot. The $107,000 is what they paid Lear. The difference between those two numbers, guys, that's the markup. So what are the changes? They didn't change anything. They're still ripping off their customers. And then there's another complaint in May of 2025 of a $20,000 investment that was valued at $13,000 when it hit their custodian. Now, this person said that their entire trade was misrepresented and that they completely omitted their 34 to 35% spreads. This is the same thing they were sued for, the same thing these companies always do. So there's a continued pattern of hidden fees, 50% value losses, 40% value losses, bad advice from salesmen, and refused buybacks. Now, you can't guarantee a buyback under the law. However, these companies, this is one of the things that they tell them, hey, don't sell these back to a legitimate company because they're not going to be able to give you as much money as we can give you. So come in and sell it back to us and we'll buy it back from you. So they promise it them over the phone, and then they go to sell it to a legitimate company, find out that they're not worth near what they paid for them. So they go back to Lear to sell it back to Lear. Lear paid them a little bit more, but it isn't close to what they would have earned and what their market-to-market losses are. So Lear make all this money, pay out all this commission, all the while the customer gets stuck with a bad investment. So looking at this whole thing, if you were Glenn Beck and you truly cared about protecting your viewers and you wanted the best for their financial well-being, why would you endorse a company like Lear Capital that has such a history? Especially when that history mirrors exactly what Goldline did to your viewers before. Do you not learn from your mistakes? Now, I'm going to answer that for you because this is all about money. We need to realize as conservatives, these influencers do not care about you. They don't care. They care about making sure that they get sponsors for their shows, that they can make as much money as possible. And they don't care if this comes at your demise. They don't care if this means that you lose half of the retirement that you spent your whole life working for. Guys, this is just one of many exposés that I'm going to be doing on the gold companies that do this stuff. And there are many of them. And many of your conservative influencers are pushing for companies who are actively defrauding you, your mom, maybe your dad, your grandparents, whoever it may be, your neighbor. I've helped people recover now in the tens of millions of dollars from these fraudulent practices. So I'm going to be covering these. I'm going to be exposing every single one of them. And if you want to learn more about how these companies operate from the inside, check out my book, The Gold Grift, where I give you a behind-the-scenes perspective of what these companies do, how they operate, how they manipulate you into buying these coins. I go into everything from my perspective of as an ex-executive of one of these companies. Guys, thanks for sticking around. Like I said, there's going to be a lot more of these videos coming. It's time that these influencers stopped selling this junk to people and causing them financial harm. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.